In our journey around the Big Sky country for the MT Top 40, chatting with Montana Grizzly players and coaches past and present, they all point at the offensive line as being one of the big keys in the turnaround of the program. And the number 2 O-lineman on the MT Top 40 was certainly key. From Billings West to the Montana Grizzlies, right into the National Football League, number 2 is Kirk Scrafford.
And Kirk was this big, tall, lean drink of water that played offensive line for Billings West, and he's tall enough to hit his head on the threshold as you walk out the door, because I think before the senior game they were getting all fired up, and he forgot to put his helmet on, and he cracked his skull open right before the game, and he taped it up like a, I don't know, like a war victim or something. He goes out and then he plays in the game and stuff, but he was one of the most intense human beings I've ever met.
Scrafford intimidated opponents and wowed college coaches during his time at Billings West before eventually traveling west to Missoula and the University of Montana. That's where he became a 4-year starter with the Grizz, earning a then program record of 43 consecutive regular season starts.
So he was a year ahead of me, and I came in as a freshman at Montana. And I remember our first meeting, he shows up, and he's a thin cat, in high school, and he goes through his freshman year, and he came back for his true freshman, after his redshirt year. And it was funny because we had a team meeting, and the coaches were looking around, and he's like, "We really appreciate the work everybody's put in this summer," and looked over. His nickname was Scrappy. They looked over at him and they go, "Scrappy?" So he clearly was that beyond dedicated and beyond tough, really. And he just, he started as a redshirt freshman and played 4 years. And intensity is like the word that I would use to describe him. And just the consummate teammate.
Man, I agree. Well, the thing about Scrafford is he was my right tackle for 2 years at Montana, and his nickname was Scrappy, which you might think is because his name. Well, obviously Scrafford, Scrappy, but it really was because of the way he played. So it was a legitimate nickname, and he was just a fighter. And that's when I think of him. That's what I think of, is that scrappiness, that toughness, and. I remember the coaches, I guess, did everything they could to try to put weight on him. I mean, he squatted more and was in the weight room, or the lunchroom eating 7 times a day. He could not gain the weight that he wanted to. And I think even in the NFL, he probably played at 275 or 280. So he was never as big as he wanted to be, but that led to him being a scrappy, tough player. But he was an athlete, and he just battled. And so I think he belongs where you're putting him.
Scrafford became a first-team All-Big Sky selection in 1988 and 89 and earned UM's Outstanding Offensive Lineman honor as a senior. The Associated Press dubbed him Honorable Mention All-American his junior campaign, then upped the ante to first-team All-American his senior season. A 4-time All-Big Sky academic honoree, Scrafford was selected to compete in the King All-America Classic Bowl in 1989.
That group, from the time I got there until I left, there was a number of offensive linemen that, they kind of were like set the bar for the years to come, because immediately the Grizzlies started recruiting big, long offensive linemen. So instead of being, 6'3" and 280, and they were looking for the 6'6" guy and the 6'7" guy. That offensive front between Tim Polich from CMR, Jay Fagan from Butte High, Chad Germer from Three Forks, Rick Earps from Glasgow. They all were like that 6'5" to 6'7", 280 to 310 pound offensive linemen, and they were just that's kind of the offensive front that we had, was those 5 guys when I was there. And Kirk was just a notch above, because he was maybe a little quicker. He was extremely intelligent, ridiculously good student. He just had a little bit extra, and all those guys had something to offer, but Kirk kind of had the whole package.
Well, I think of Jay Fagan. I think of, my line, I was really blessed to have a great offensive line, but Chad Germer, obviously he went to the NFL a little bit and has been a great coach forever. Rick Earps at left guard. The line was really good. So together, collectively, and that's when the Grizz really started to get things going. And I think for the next decade, 2 decades, the offensive line built of mainly Montana kids was really the strong point of Grizz football.
I didn't see anybody, nobody punched him, I'm sure of that. and he got up and was saying some things on the way back, you know, on the way off the field. So I don't know. I think it's something maybe he made up. I don't know, or maybe he got hit so hard out there he was hallucinating. I don't know.
Kirk, you know, he played on the intramural basketball teams, and he floated around there like he wasn't 6'6" and 280 pounds. You know, he was athletic, but that coupled with his hard work. I mean, I was one of the few guys. Weight room wasn't super mandatory for us. I mean, some guys just knew if they wanted to play, they had to get in there, and I was one of the receivers that would go in and lift alongside the offensive linemen, and some of the things they did and the amount of weight they moved in that room was unprecedented. I mean, it was eye-popping, and he was one of those guys, and just would never back down to the work or back down to anybody he was ever up against.
Scrafford signed with the Cincinnati Bengals as a free agent in 1990 and spanned a 9-year NFL career. His first start actually paired him against Hall of Fame defensive end Howie Long, and he's also credited with blocking former Green Bay defender Reggie White as Steve Young was finding Terrell Owens for a game-winning touchdown in the 49ers win over the Packers in the 1998 playoffs. Scrafford, all in all, would play in 99 career games, starting 52 of those, according to Pro Football Reference, before retiring after the 98 season, returning home to Big Sky Country. He was inducted into the Grizzly Sports Hall of Fame in 2003 and the Montana Football Hall of Fame in 2017.
Yeah, I fished a lot just right behind my house. There's the Bitterroot River is about a mile walk from my house, and caught some nice ones back there. You know, lost a lot of big fish, the ones that get away. You know,
he's an outdoorsman. I mean, and he's the type of guy that's not afraid to go fishing for couple weeks and just come back. I mean, he just loves that. And so I imagine he's probably just doing just that. In the summer, he's probably fishing, and in the fall and winter, he's probably hunting and doing his thing.
Kirk "Scrappy" Scrafford, the #2 offensive lineman in Montana's history, as the MT Top 40 gets set to unveil #1. Only one to go, plus your honorable mentions. Meet them on Friday. Richie Melby, MTN Sports.